And welcome to the Huddle, KGUT9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined as always by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. We've got a very special guest this week, and he is Brian. Brian Lawlor, the president of Scripps Sports. Brian, it's Jason and Pat here in Tucson. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, and Scripps Sports, of course, has the WNBA on ION, NWSL on ION, ice hockey with regional telecasts. Some other big things have already been announced. I'm sure there's other things in the works too. And of course, you've been a big part of that. My question to you to start off with is, in December of 2022, when Scripps Sports started, did you have any idea who Caitlin Clark was and the impact that she would have and the growth of women's basketball? WNBA?
No, I mean, I might have known who Caitlin Clark was, but I certainly never expected the impact she would have on the game of basketball at the collegiate level, and then at the professional level. I mean, the fandom around this young lady is incredible, and every time we get a game that includes the Fever on ION, it's 1 million, 2 million viewers, and she's just brought a whole new level of fans and interest to the league. It's remarkable, and I think my favorite last year, there was a magazine headline that said Caitlin Clark made Scripps executives look like geniuses, and they were probably right.
Yeah, but Brian, you go back to that time when you had the idea for Scripps Sports, and you had to pitch that, and you couldn't have known the success of the WNBA and for Caitlin Clark, but you had an idea about bringing sports back to broadcast television, and I think that was what you should get a lot of credit for, because we had seen it obviously go away to regional sports networks and go to cable networks, but this was you went back to the future. I mean, you went back and then you brought it back to the future, right?
Yeah, during the pandemic we bought ION, and the prior ownership just ran sort of a strategy around procedurals and dramas, and sort of SVU and Law and Order and NCIS and Blue Bloods and Hawaii Five-0, shows like that. And so, after we acquired it, we just said, look, we paid a couple billion, I think, for this asset, and it's very successful. It's the 5th highest rated network in the country, but is there more we can do with it? Is there other opportunity? And we spent, as a company, probably 6 months looking at all the different genres of content and programming. And at some point, our CEO asked if I would, sort of lead the committee looking at sports. And so we spent a couple months, and not only did we look at national rights for national broadcast, but we just said, let's look at everything in sports and try and get a feel for what's happening with broadcast rights. And so we also looked at local. And I think, what we realized at that point was that most teams and leagues, other than the NFL, had a reach problem. That even if you're on ESPN or TNT or TBS, those networks only reach about 65% of the country because of all the cord cutting that happened. And then on the local level, these regional sports networks, now they're called FanDuel. Before that was Bally's. Before that was Fox Sports, right? So they've gone through a lot. But, we looked at that space and just said, with all the cord cutting that's happened there, I mean, many of those teams in local markets were only reaching 40% of the available households in their own home markets. And we just said, well, look, if you own a baseball team or a hockey team or a basketball team, like, that's a terrible business model if you can't even reach half of your potential fans. And so we walked out of that, with some ideas that, on the national level, we could really increase the exposure of a team or a league looking for broader reach. And sort of the same idea that, on the local side, we knew that we could reach a lot more households than, the current business model with the regional sports networks. And so, from there, we developed a strategy around women's sports because that was the most underserved. And, this still blows my mind that 2 years ago, the Indiana Fever, so the season before they drafted Caitlin Clark, their broadcast distribution was 10 games on Bally's in Indianapolis, and the rest of the games were streamed on YouTube. Like, that was that. And then, fast forward 1 year, and they had 20 something games on national broadcast television. Wow, what a difference. So it turned out that the investments we made were at the right time. We got a little lucky, but I'm convinced that had we not, before she came out, had we not built the platform, we were every week, 25 weeks and double headers every week, right? Like everyone finally knew where they could find the WNBA with consistency and be able to watch a lot of teams, whatever. If that didn't exist and she came out and that same old business model was they're going to put 10 games on a regional sports network, maybe a couple games on broadcast, and the rest were on YouTube or Facebook, like I don't think the W would have exploded, and Caitlin wouldn't be what Caitlin is. So I feel like we played a really important part in building, if you build it, they will come. We built it. And fortunately, we were ready for her to come, and not just Caitlin, but that whole freshman class, which is equally as good this season. And it was great. We had Paige on our game on Friday night. It was supposed to be Paige and Caitlin. Caitlin was suffering an injury, but we still had 1.1 million people. Yeah. And prior to last year, from 2008 till the beginning of last season, there was not a single game of the WNBA regular season on any network that reached a million viewers. Last year there was 24 or something like that, and it's off and running again this year.
Yeah, more than 100% ratings growth, if AI is correct. Also, the preseason games nationally televised for the first time.
In we had two of them.
WNBA history. Okay, so let's bring up, Brian, we've got a Huddle poll question this week, and we thought we would tailor it to women's sports as well, or the WNBA. If Caitlin Clark is who somebody thinks is the biggest star in sports today. So you've got 5 choices: Shohei Ohtani, Caitlin Clark, LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, or other. If you want to write somebody in, somebody thought Simone Biles was a good choice. There's a couple of other ones for sure. But I'll tell you what, Brian, I picked Caitlin Clark, not because you were coming on, but I think that right now she is the biggest star in sports today. Nothing against any of the others. I think Patrick Mahomes is huge. LeBron James.
Look, I'm in Cincinnati. You're not going to get me to vote on Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to worry. LeBron, he's at the bottom of the list.
Of course, they're all great picks, but I genuinely, truly voted for Caitlin Clark. Curious who you would pick for.
I would agree with you, and I'll tell you why. As I look at this list, when Caitlin Clark plays, the audience is double any other game in the WNBA on that day. You can't say the same for any of the others. I mean, they're incredible athletes. They have more fandom and they sell more merchandise and all with them. But at the end of the day, they don't have if the Lakers are playing or the Dodgers are playing and there's a bunch of other games, chances are they're not double everyone else. And I think that's the impact she's had. I mean, I've been to Fever games. I've sat there and witnessed the incredible passion and the following. Every little girl at a Fever game has a Caitlin Clark shirt on. Everyone. And look, it's hard to compare 3 of the best athletes in the world and Patrick Mahomes. But I agree. I think Caitlin Clark is the most influential athlete in sports today.
And I forgot to mention, Pat and Brian, people can vote on X and on our website as well.
I sure hope Patrick Mahomes doesn't win here after I've been trashing him.
No, I don't think
we'll have the results at the end. He might. Well, the results at the end. I saw some early voting, and what I saw earlier, Ohtani was in the lead, but I wonder also if part of that is in the middle of baseball season. Anyway, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. But you touched on it, Brian, and I want to follow up with that. As big as Caitlin Clark has become, and how big of a ratings driver she is for you on ION, it's not just Caitlin Clark. I think the league's visibility certainly has improved with your product, but there's a lot of rivalries. There's Angel Reese, obviously, but it really, I'll bet you that the average sports fan could probably name 10 players in the WNBA right now, and I don't think they could have done that a couple of years ago.
I think that's right. And look, my job probably necessitates I watch a lot more WNBA than NBA, but I can name more players in the WNBA than the NBA. And it's been interesting that I've talked to other people just along the way, and they've said the same thing. Like, they can't just name one player in the WNBA. They can now name 7 or 8. And I think that's significantly different than it was a couple of years ago.
We actually have a reason to show Indiana Fever games. Another one reason, because Ari McDonald, she was the star who took Arizona to the Final Four in the NCAA championship game in 2021. She recently joined the Fever on a hardship contract, and as you probably know, and has stuck with the team. So we showed a little of Friday.
They've built a really good team.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, without Caitlin, they're a little bit of a different team, and
right,
sort of around 500 now, but that's going to change when she's healthy, and I expect them to be a very competitive playoff team.
So it's not just WNBA on Scripps Sports on ION, but also the NWSL. 20.5 million unique viewers last year, more than half of whom were women. Are you pleased with the progress of the NWSL so far on ION?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think this was one of those sports where it lacked visibility and it lacked consistency. It's for us, it's a year behind when we started with the WNBA. So we're in our third season of the WNBA. We're in our second with the NWSL. They don't have as many household names, and they don't yet have a breakout star like Caitlin. I mean, there's a lot of big names, and certainly there was good interest coming out of the Olympics last year. But then you also, a couple of people were injured and maternity leave and things like that. And so, we're really happy with the NWSL. We think the quality of play is great. It's got the best players in the world. I think they're still looking for their breakout, but there's some really good teams and some incredible stars that I think make it easy to watch. I've come to really appreciate the game the more I watch it. I think it needs a little more time. And look, it wasn't the cities, it wasn't the teams, it wasn't the rivalries that broke the WNBA out, right? It was specific players. And I think, we need I think some of the best players in the world are already in the NWSL. We probably need more visibility for them. And just, I think it will be specific players that move the interest in the league, just like with the W.
I want to ask you too about your hockey teams as
well. Yeah, we're
I mean,
Stanley Cup champs.
Yeah, I mean, Florida was just amazing, right? And you've also got Vegas, and you've got Utah, the old Arizona Coyotes, and we're unique in Tucson as well as our sister station in Phoenix because we can carry both Vegas Golden Knights and Utah now, the Mammoth, and so we do get to watch a lot of hockey as far as those nightly games on a regional basis, and that's probably exactly why you picked up these properties as places like Phoenix, Tucson, Vegas, that and Salt Lake City.
Yeah, look, we love the hockey business. We now have 4 teams. We just announced that we'll be the broadcast home for the Tampa Bay Lightning next year also, and I'm still a little giddy that one of our first teams just went on to win the Stanley Cup this year. So we're really proud to have our partnership with them. But at the end of the day, it really comes back to that initial premise. Like we have a platform that allows us to make games available to fans. And, I think with a lot of the changes in television, one of the few opportunities where people sit down and watch television together as families and brings together a sense of community is live sports. And so, when we started with the Vegas Golden Knights, they just won the cup, and they've got a great, culture and a great fan base there that's sort of been organically grown over the last now 7 or 8 years. But, it was a matter of, again, in the year they won the Stanley Cup, their visibility was less than 50% in that market. And it was like, these are the best team in the NHL. Everyone deserves to be able to see them and enjoy them. And then, there's many states that don't have NHL, but it's an unbelievable sport, and our ability with our footprint to be able to. We're in 5 markets in Montana with the Golden Knights. We're in 2 markets in Idaho. We used to be in Utah. Now we're in Phoenix and Tucson, right? So we've been able to expand the interest and reach of the NHL, and I think create fans for these teams. So we love and are really proud of what we're doing. Our platform works. When we took over the Golden Knights, we doubled their ratings this year. The Panthers, with their first season under us, were up 150%. We were able to put them on TV in every one of the markets of their NHL approved territory. So, the the model we built is working, and I think a lot more fans get to enjoy their local team. And like we just saw in Florida, the sense of community and the pride that sports can bring together is just awesome.
I also should have mentioned that WNBA is expanding 3 more teams, 2
Yeah.
of which in Scripps Market with Detroit and Cleveland. So that's an addition. Also, a couple of other additions. The SI Women's Games are coming to Scripps Sports, and the Elevance Health Women's Fort Myers Tip-Off. Tell us about those 2 things.
Yeah, I think we are committed to, increasing the visibility of women's sports. I think we've done a great job with the NWSL, WNBA. But we're looking to sort of see what other opportunities were out there. We do really well with the professional women's basketball, and we saw an opportunity to partner on a college basketball, sort of season tip-off event down in Fort Myers on Thanksgiving weekend. And so we're excited to have 2 full days of women's basketball for games each day on ION, and again, give these, athletes national visibility. And then something we're really excited about is our new partnership with Sports Illustrated. And so we're, co-creating with them a week-long international sports festival. It'll be a Americas versus the world format. All of it will take place in Oceanside, California, and each night over the 6 nights will be a different sport. So one day's basketball, so it'll be sort of the best American, or and I say American, but best basketball players from the Americas competing against the best in the world. So one night will be basketball, one night will be gymnastics, one night will be volleyball. We've got a night where we're going to do combat sports, so judo and wrestling. We've got literally the best combat athletes, and not UFC, but like the Olympic events. We've got the best in the world. We have the gold medalists, the silver medalists in each of those events and weight classes. So I think that'll be fascinating. One of the events we're really excited about is we're doing flag football. And there's so much energy around flag. The NFL is investing in it. It's going to be an Olympic sport in Los Angeles. And so I've learned a lot about flag football and women's flag football here in the last couple of months. We'll have the absolute best players in the world competing with that. The best teams in the world right now are America and Mexico. And so we'll be bringing their athletes together on the America's team, and then, putting together the best team from the rest of the world. But, some of those events are only visible during the Olympics. That's once every 4 years. And we're hoping to build this event every other year in non-Olympic years and increase the visibility of these athletes on a consistent basis.
Yeah, that's terrific. Any other plans? I know you can't give specifics, but are you looking at maybe going outside of the sports we've been talking about, basketball, hockey, things like that? Or you think about that?
Yeah, we talk to folks every day. And just today, I think I had a call with the Women's Super League, the top English league over there with this, the organizations that are aligned to, the PSL over there. So Arsenal and Chelsea and Man U and Man City. And also, talked to them today. I talked to the PBR, professional bull riders. We're talking to, the PWHL tomorrow. And that doesn't mean there's a deal there. We're just constantly learning about what everyone's doing and what their rights look like and where there could be. And, some of these things take years to develop. Some of them never develop. Like, it's good what they're doing, but they're not a right fit for us, or vice versa. Some, will be offered big money, and maybe, we do or don't compete in that. But it's really interesting. We learned a lot about a lot of different sports. And to your point, when you started, like, we're 2.5 years into this thing, and I am shocked with, we have the 2 biggest professional women's leagues in the country in our portfolio. We have 4 NHL teams. We've got the last 3 Stanley Cup champions on our team. We're launching a big international women's event. We've done a lot in 3 years, and I don't know what will be new in the next 3 years. We don't have a number or a target. It's sort of when things feel right and it's for the right value and we can make a difference. That's sort of when we lean into stuff. But, we love talking to people and learning about their sports, and some we'll be partners with and others we won't.
I have a suggestion. It's not as big as some of the sports you have now or some of the ones you mentioned, but if you ever need to fill time, I do miss a little Australian rules football when I was
I thought you were going to ask me about pickleball.
when I
Everyone
was a
else
kid
does.
on ESPN. I was a little kid, and then they had
Yeah.
Australian rules football, before ESPN was ESPN. So I don't know if you ever need to fill a little time, just
Good to know.
I'll ask you to please consider. Let's wrap up with our Huddle poll question and see some results. By the way, of course, we're joined by Brian Lawlor, Pat Parris, Jason Barr here on the Huddle, KGO9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Okay, so earlier we introduced our Huddle poll question.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest sports star today? And our producers, Anna's going to pull up some. Oh, she has them here. Okay.
Yeah, they're there.
Okay, so we have here 44% for Shohei Ohtani, 35% Caitlin Clark, 14.7 LeBron, and 5 point. Okay, so if I'm seeing 44 at Ohtani and 5.9 Patrick Mahomes,
Seems right to me.
either people here don't like the Chiefs for some reason, or we've got a little bit of a bias towards the season we're in, right? Because if we're going into the Super Bowl, the week leading into the Super Bowl, I don't think those numbers would be that.
And look, it's hard to argue that at the end of the day, Ohtani is, a global, superstar. And,
Good point.
Caitlin is really an American superstar. Obviously that's building now, but, Ohtani, I mean, he brings a whole continent of interest with him, right? And so I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well put. I actually, I'll be honest. I voted for Ohtani. I did.
I get it.
And I thought hard about Caitlin Clark. Don't get me wrong. But I never would have picked Patrick Mahomes. So I'm with you, Brian.
Because you don't like the Chiefs, or you don't?
I just bring a personal bias. You're in Cincinnati, and we get knocked out every year by the Chiefs.
Yeah, I hear you. If
you had Joe Burrow, I probably would have put him second.
Then you might have put him up there. Yeah, I just think when you look at the great athlete right now, it's a real neck and neck between Ohtani and Clark to me. That's and now you had star power. Sure, both of them have star power too. So I went with Ohtani just because I'm just enamored with his ability to not only hit the baseball hard, but throw the baseball hard.
Right.
Yeah. He's like nobody I've ever seen in my life.
No, I mean, people used to say Babe Ruth was that just an unbelievable player, but I got to believe Ohtani's better. I mean, isn't everybody better now than they were 120 years ago? So yeah.
He's in better shape.
No doubt about that.
Very good. Brian Lawlor, thank you so much for joining us here on the Huddle. Really appreciate it. Congratulations with all the success on Ion, and you got to be lucky and good, and you've been both. So
well, thank you. Appreciate it. So it's good seeing you guys.
And great seeing you, Brian.
Yeah, we're excited about the things to come, and we look forward to talking to you down the road. So
don't forget about us here in Tucson. When you get even bigger, don't forget about us.
No, I never forget about my old group. So thanks.
All right, thanks, Brian.
That's Brian Lawlor, president of Scripps Sports, joining us here on the Huddle. And good point with Ohtani. I get it. I was just seeing Patrick Mahomes a little low, the biggest sports star of all time. But I guess he had a bad, the Chiefs had a bad Super Bowl, and we're not in football season.
And I could maybe name 2 or 3 quarterbacks right now that I think are as good, if not maybe better, or at least as good as him. But I can't name a better basketball player, and I certainly can't name a better baseball player right now. So, and then you look at star power alone, and Patrick Mahomes, to me, doesn't even have the national influence impact right now that Caitlin Clark has, and certainly no worldwide power that a Shohei Ohtani has right now.
All fair points.
And we didn't even mention LeBron James, who's bigger than most NBA players. He's not Michael Jordan global, but he's pretty global. He's not Messi global or something like that as far as a soccer player, but we could have put him on there, I guess, too, right?
Yeah. He's also probably got a year left, you'd say.
Yeah. Another, he exercised his option. Did you see he's over $500 million in career, just salary earnings right now?
Yeah. I mean, what he's done post 40 is incredible. I remember
pretty remarkable what he's done. Yeah.
The longevity. He spends $1 million a year on his body, he said. Yeah.
Well, he can afford it. He can afford it.
That's right. Well, it's an investment. Yeah. All right, Pat, we were out for a few weeks before today, so it's good to be back. And we don't do it every week here during the summer, but we'll do it. We'll do some more shows, and of course we'll be back full throttle come football season in September.
This was a good one today. Brian is always an excellent guest, and it's an important time right now in broadcasting sports, and he you said it. Sometimes you got to be lucky. Sometimes you got to be good, and he's been both, and that's really great for our company, Scripps, obviously, but it's good for the sports viewers who want to see great sports, and they're producing.
Yeah, good point. I forgot to mention that Ion and K-Gun9 are owned by the same company, which is Scripps. Yeah. All right, for Pat, I'm Jason, and this has been the Huddle, K-Gun9's weekly streaming sports talk show. We'll see you next time. Thanks everybody for joining us.